So you've read the video title and you have a rough idea of what you're going to watch. Basic housekeeping, I've made two assumptions. The first being you have a well-maintained Subaru and you are now in a position to make changes. The second assumption, you've kept the EA82. So with that in mind, these are my suggestions. You don't have to agree with me. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. I've broken it up into three sections: cooling, handling / performance, and experience. So, enjoy.
まばゆいばかりのエアロフォルムをまとった最新の高速 4WD テクノロジー。
Okay, cooling. It's no secret that the EA82 tends to run hot. The aerodynamic profile of the Vortex means that it doesn't particularly, get a good amount of air to cool. And on top of that, in stock format, it's pretty primitive. So yeah, you can do things like non-glycol coolant, and that will definitely preserve your radiator and it runs it a bit cooler. But there are modifications that improve shifting the operating range, essentially. So first being upgrade the radiator. If you have your lower trim naturally aspirated Vortex, going to a turbo model radiator, whether that be a Vortex or an RX Alcyone, means you get a proper dual core radiator, and that's already a step above what you've got. Beyond that, I've seen a lot of people on Facebook are now doing BLZ radiators in their older Subarus, so a good Koyo-Rad radiator for a BLZ retrofitted, I definitely think would improve your cooling. You can heat wrap your exhaust, so your extractors, and that'll stop the heat from rising up and heat soaking the engine really quickly. Another must-have, I reckon, is changing out your radiator fans. So modern thermo fans are far more efficient at cooling. I think if you have a fan clutch, not only is that not very effective, but it's also a parasitic loss. So yeah, you're going to gain improvements by running thermo fans, whether they be on a switch or a thermostatic system, over your stock options. Another great product you can get is a Australian product called an engine guard. Super basic thing, and if you get the right one of these, you can have temperature monitoring on both heads of your flat four, and they have a temperature alarm inbuilt into it. So my friend Austin has one of these in his Subaru L series. It's really nice. Just beeps if you're overheating. You can tuck it away somewhere so it's not distracting, or you can have it out on show. Alternatively, you can run a set of cool gauges, but I don't think the Vortex is particularly suited to it, so I'd much prefer, a little engine guard. Now, a slightly more controversial modification would be adding a aftermarket oil cooler to your cooling system. If you did this, I'd recommend running probably a stock oil cooler from another brand of car, so it's not too big. You don't need like a racing sized oil cooler. That's completely overkill. But I think running an oil cooler in a non-thermostatic system with full flow would shift your oil temperature operating range up a bit, and that would cool your oil slightly better, allow you to live in that higher RPM zone a bit more than, say, your stock format, and as a result, make it a bit more of an enthusiast vehicle. And lastly, I would add a heat shield for the brake master cylinder. The brake master cylinder is becoming a harder to get part. It is quite exposed to a lot of the heat of the engine, especially if it's a EA82T or turbo. So you can get a bit of sheet metal, essentially fold up a shield to prevent it from getting too hot, wrap it in reflective tape, and I think that's a very simple mod that anyone can do that will improve the longevity of an important part of your car, which, you know, the stock braking system is already not fantastic. I think this is a good way to, you know, stop it from failing. So that brings us to handling / performance. This is a book called Mazda Miata Performance Handbook. It was given to me by the previous owner of my MX-5 or Miata. And the reason I'm showing it to you in relation to the performance section of, you know, a Subaru Vortex is because I think this book is still quite relevant. So, looking at the chapter on suspension and chassis is this bit here. The author asked one of Mazda's top suspension engineers what would be the first thing he'd improve on a Miata with 60,000 miles. His answer was quick and short. Replace all the suspension bushings. Now, sure, it's a Mazda MX-5, but the Mazda MX-5 is a sports car. And the Subaru Vortex is a sports car. So, replace all the bushings. And very fortunately, DRW produces a full bushing kit for your car. So, depending on if it's front-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, you can get a kit that suits your car. I will include them in the description. So, that would be the first thing that I would do. I'd polybush the car, and I guarantee you it's a worthwhile difference. Another modification I think you can do to greatly enhance the performance of your car is changing out the rear sway bar. This isn't something I really ever thought could make such a difference until I experienced it myself. But the weight distribution of a Vortex, regardless of the drivetrain, is pretty heavy towards the front. Predominantly the weight sits at the front of the vehicle, probably even before the wheels. So simply changing the rear sway bar really does improve the way the car handles. So I was very lucky, and I got to drive a car that had the Alcyone sway bar in place of the rear, and phenomenal change. Sure, the car was tuned in a bunch of different other regards, but if you're able to, you know, experiment with different sway bars or get your hands on an Alcyone sway bar, that is one of the best changes I think you can make to your car. And I'll try and also include a video somewhere that explains why, because I haven't really looked into it completely, but I guarantee you it's worth it. So my other performance handling modification that I would include is simply improving the exhaust system. So it doesn't matter if you're doing it from the extractors all the way to the muffler. Mine is only from past the catalytic converter. Same with my friend Austin. And we both have stainless steel systems. They sound really good. I think just the overall timbre of the stainless steel works really well with the boxer engine grumble. So I would highly recommend it. As for does it give you any more power? When I first got my car, it had about eight holes in the system, and it sounded kind of cool in a way. Going to just a system that actually flowed properly, it felt like my car was more powerful. Like it just felt like it had a bit more torque at the low end. Probably because, you know, as it gets more out, it can put more air in and it can do combustion better. But yeah, I would highly recommend opting to a proper exhaust system. And my last inclusion for this section is Stanley RAYBRIG headlights. So Stanley RAYBRIG, which is a Japanese company which specialize in lighting, I guess. They produce, I think it's 2 different versions of projectors that you can get that are compatible with the Subaru Vortex. They're still glass, they still look very classy, and I think they are the best option in replacing the headlights in order to get more lighting and safer driving. So I would highly recommend doing this. It's something I'm probably going to do to my car at some point. The other inclusion I would have is maybe some extra fog lights just to light up the corners. So where I live has a whole lot of really good hilly roads, so they're really fun to whip through, but at nighttime, you need a bit more lighting to get those corners lit up, enough to be confident driving through. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't have a whole lot of do this, improve the performance. I'm really just, how can you better the car?
今、走りの世界に新しい夜明けが訪れようとしている。世界初の 2+2 4WD スペシャルティアルチオーネ。
So experience is a bit of a weird section, but hopefully it's self-explanatory. In here, I would include adding central locking and an immobilizer to your car. No one wants their car stolen, and central locking is so nice to have. So expanding on that, I would also include adding a remote boot release. And fortunately, Nev's Garage actually did a video on that, so I'll include that. But those are those are the three sort of big experience ticket items that I would say just improve the car. And the last one I would really add would be how to address the music situation of the Vortex. And so the car comes with the factory cassette player, depending on what trim you get, and you're sort of left with what I thought with two options: rip the whole thing out and put in an aftermarket radio, which is cool, but definitely reduces the look of that cool 80s interior. So functional, but not the coolest. Option 3, and I only recently found out about this because a friend has this in his car. I didn't even know it was a thing, and I'll try and include a link on how to do it, I guess. But you can actually remove the factory radio, solder on a Bluetooth receiver, hollow out a cassette tape, put that in, and then you have essentially the stock radio with Bluetooth capability. So when you have a blank cassette in, it will just go off the Bluetooth transmitter, and then you can just play from your phone. And I don't think they're particularly expensive, so that would be, in my opinion, the most class option for, playing your own music in the car. While you're at it, I'd also change out the speakers. I don't imagine 80s sound systems are particularly awesome. A bonus modification. Yeah, bonus modification. Now, I'm not saying it improves torque, but I have heard rumors that after you put this on, the car definitely feels a little bit faster. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it. Always helps. So, thank you. Peace.